and treasure seekers. This is Blake coming to you live from New Mexico, and joining me as always from Washington State, it's Bryn and Cody. How's it going, guys?
Good evening. Things are going well. Very, very busy weekend.
Yeah, you guys had some home projects there.
Yeah, people might notice that Cody's background is a little different this episode. Yeah, starting, I don't know, Friday evening, we started working on our basement and and not too long, a lot of things happened. So it was a busy weekend.
Good things or bad things?
Good things, all good
Oh,
things.
okay,
Just
good.
uh
We don't know how to
s-
pace ourselves. And
no.
when Bryn placed all the orders, they like all showed up on the same day or 2 days. So pretty much once we got the first thing, it was like, let's just not stop working till we're done.
It sounded like you paced the orders perfectly then.
Well,
Well, we
if they were spread out a little more, we'd be forced to do kind of one task at a time. And instead it was like, oh, all the materials and stuff we need is here. So let's just never take a break.
It was alarming because we redid our hardwood floors ourselves. Like I guess it was kind of COVID time, and so it took like I think 7 or 8 months for the materials to get in. And then we ordered these floors, and they're like, "Okay, we'll drop them off tomorrow." And then it was just like, "I guess we're doing the floors tomorrow."
It's awesome. I love a good flooring project.
I felt like we were on
Extreme.
Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
Did you guys go outside, move that bus?
Yeah.
I think
Oh.
I think flooring's super fun for like 2 days, but I just don't know how anyone does it more frequently than that. My back would just be a mess. It's already a mess after 2 days.
How was your
Nice.
weekend, Blake?
It's pretty good. It's a busy week at work last week, and two more busy days tomorrow. Actually, today, Monday and Tuesday. So once I survive that, I'll be able to spend a bit more time on treasure hunting again. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I feel like I had thoughts come to mind about the treasure hunt while we were working, but I was just like plowing forward with the project itself. So I have kind of a growing list of things to address once we can get our feet back under us here.
Cool. All right. So hopefully some awesome content next episode. Not to say there's not awesome content this episode, because I know Cody has a nice PowerPoint presentation ready to go that I'm super excited about. I haven't seen
I
it
don't know if
yet.
it's nice, but it is technically in PowerPoint format.
Okay. All right. I my PowerPoints aren't beautified. I mean, your previous one, you set a high bar with like the little sparkles and stuff. So
True. True, true.
you
I'm
kind of did
excited to
that
see
to
it.
yourself. Well, should we dive right in, or do you have more banter?
Banter complete.
Banter complete. Let's do horseshoes and hand grenades. Cody, you're leading horseshoes
Yeah.
and hand grenades today. Always a good
S-
time. I always enjoy yours. And Bryn's
Oh,
too, but Cody's, I don't know.
what
I
a
don't know.
nice
I
compliment.
think we're on the same wavelength a bit more sometimes. That's all.
Wow. Well, let's just take a moment. I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you very much. Sometimes I worry because you guys are both so stoic when I give my little presentations or my thoughts. I'm worried that I'm just like so miscalibrating and just like you guys are just so far above me in all of the
No,
comments that you're just like giving each other looks like, oh my gosh, this crazy guy and his
no.
ridiculous things he's saying.
I
So
don't think I've ever thought
I
that.
appreciate a little bit of validation, and let's see if I still get validation after this next segment.
This is
I
your
think
last.
you and Blake think a lot more similarly.
Yeah, I think maybe that's true. But we need multiple thought types to have a better shot at winning this. So, anyway, it takes a village to find a treasure. All right, go ahead and well, I do have a mini rant.
Oh boy.
Do we have a sound?
Blake-
Do we have a
No,
sound?
it still doesn't work. I'm still trying to get over the technical difficulties here.
No.
I will re-download it from Rashawn, and someday, if you're lucky, you'll hear the Blake rant ditty.
Jingle.
Are we?
Sizzle.
Can we say here that we're planning on going to Seeking Treasure Con? I guess as a bit more banter.
We can.
Okay, so I'm definitely going. I'll be there. But if I'm not your favorite audience, Bryn, Cody, are you guys going to be there too? You're planning on it right now?
I'd say
That's
planning
the
on it.
plan.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's.
I'd be surprised if we don't go. I think
Okay.
we're going unless something comes up.
So I'll be there for sure. Bryn and Cody are most likely. So hope to see everybody there. Mini rant. We can't be very skeptical of your findings, Cody, if you're feeling that way, because no box has been found yet. So nobody really knows what the right approach is for any of these things, right? Until a box is found, everything's on the table. So very open-minded towards that. Once a box is found, then we can start throwing barbs. All right.
If a box is found, you're retroactively going to go back and poke holes in all of my original lines.
Remember when you made the music? Okay.
Nice.
I will say a couple nights ago, I actually had a dream that we found the Pokemon box. So now I just need to manifest.
Manifest. I got some good Pokemon goodies for you today from Discord, so we'll see.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Cody, sorry to rudely interrupt. You can
No.
continue.
By all means. All right. So as you can see, what I'm going to be talking about is basically roadmap contemplations. So my thoughts on, I really liked the approach of, the roadmap and that idea in general. And I spent some time and wanted to kind of document some of my thoughts as I spent some time almost like playing devil's advocate or doing some deductive reasoning on what like kind of the framework that the roadmap idea would have to take realistically to be feasible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I'm going to explore in this PowerPoint. I started with just like a few pages of notes that I jotted down while I was thinking about this, and I was just going to talk through my notes, and then that became like difficult. So then I kind of turned it into this PowerPoint, which is almost more for just keeping me on track with talking about one thing at a time instead of just a jumbled mess. And I still don't feel great about if I'm going to be able to talk about this linearly, and I'm trying to retrace my thoughts on this. But so roadmap contemplations. And I wanted to start, let me go to my next slide here. This is a bit of a roller coaster of emotions because I wanted to start with something that I was really excited about. And I kind of alluded to that I was excited about it in the last podcast. But the more I thought about it, the more excited I got. And I actually did most of my research without double checking that thought. And then this slide, you will see that I double checked my thought kind of halfway through my research. So in the last podcast, we had talked about, we had taken, I think it was a viewer mail on another one of what I kind of call an all 23 solve, which is getting a similar clue or similar type of clue from each of the chapters in chapter one that kind of piece together to create a complete solve. I had a lot of different kind of all 23 solve ideas when I was first reading the book, and I keep coming back to them, but I kept getting turned off by that phrase in the book where he said, hey, most of the chapters or whatever it was have a clue, but
almost
not
every chapter. Yeah.
Almost every chapter has a clue. So in the last episode, I got really excited because all I was remembering is that almost every chapter in part one has a clue. And we talked about how, hey, there's also, the safety chapter and the acknowledgments, the introduction and stuff. And I thought maybe there is really a clue or a similar clue in each of the first 23 chapters. and there still can be like an all 23 solve. And he was just like referencing the introduction and the safety chapter. And I thought that even logically that would make a ton of sense for him to want to say, because I think it was in the introduction that he mentioned the almost every chapter thing. And it would logically make sense for him to want to say there's a clue in every chapter, but then really want to emphasize not to try and look for clues in that safety chapter. So he'd come back and, revise that and say almost every chapter. So there's just like no discrepancy about anything pointing towards that safety chapter for people to pick through and think that they can disregard some safety thing because of something they're reading into it.
Right.
So I got really excited about that. I got back into the idea that, hey, maybe an all 23 solve could be valid. And I started working on kind of the roadmap idea and coming up with a couple of different all 23 ideas. And then like 3/4 of the way through what we're going to talk about, I came back actually to put the quote in the slide, expecting the quote, because I had kind of, what do they call that? Revisionist memoried the quote. And the actual quote, when I went to type it out, is actually, as I mentioned before, almost every chapter in the first 23 includes at least some morsel of information help for finding the location of the largest treasure box. And then I was bummed again. So it's been a roller coaster of emotion of like thinking that all 23s aren't valid, then thinking, oh, wait, no, how did I miss this? He's probably just talking about like the safety chapter doesn't count and they totally are valid. And then when I went back again, I was like, oh no, he like very specifically says almost every chapter of the first 23 includes at least some morsel of information. Which,
I mean, also, just like those other sections aren't chapters. There's only 23 specified chapters.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I got myself all worked up and very excited that maybe an all 23 would be valid. And then ultimately now I had to X out this slide because I no longer think that that's really a valid point. And it's honestly being this far into the treasure hunt and into like doing all of the different research. I think it's still so hard for me to, I don't know if I want to say hard for me to believe, but hard for me to like internalize the idea that, I mean, if you're taking this literally, and I think it's meant to be taken literally, that some of those chapters literally have nothing in them that's intentional. And it's so hard to believe that. And it just makes it that much harder to know where to look and where not to look. So anyway, that was supposed to be my introduction, getting all excited about the all 23 solves idea. And that's kind of scrapped at this point once I actually did my due diligence and reread the exact verbiage of that quote. Anyway, moving on, I'm still going to talk about the idea of roadmaps. I think that most of my thoughts on it are still useful and helpful and valid. I definitely had originally approached it thinking that the roadmap was going to be basically 1 point for each of the 23 chapters, which I think is what we talked about in the mailbag last week. And I liked that idea. Obviously, that part I no longer think could be valid given the quote. But a lot of these thoughts I think still hold weight. So here's what I came up with after much contemplation for the framework for the roadmap idea. So I think basically, in my mind, the idea of the roadmap would be that there's a series of clues that lead to points that kind of go across some area of the United States, and that you follow those points from point to point, and then ultimately end up at your end destination that is the location of the treasure or thereabouts. So the two requirements that I came up with were one, I do think that they need to be scrambled in some way. I don't think that your first point that you find and start following is in chapter 1, and then your second one's in chapter 2, and then your third one's in chapter 3, all the way to chapter 23. And I think the biggest reason for that is that would lead to just being able to kind of jump in halfway through or 3/4 of the way there and pick up the trail and basically like disregard half the book and still get to the end, or kind of the ultimate worst case scenario, you just like read chapter 22 and chapter 23 and just disregard the whole roadmap entirely, and you're able to find it. The second thing I came up with as a requirement that I'm a little bit more, I think, more proud of, and I think is more useful when you think about the idea of a roadmap and how feasible it is the idea of basically what I'm calling nonlinear spacing. So say, obviously, all 23 things scrapped now, but say that you had 23 different nodes and you're traveling from node to node as part of this roadmap, and it leads you to the final location. I don't think that the spacing between each of those nodes can be the same distance, because I think if basically, in order for it to be small enough that it leads you to a reasonably close proximity to the treasure at the end, in order for it to be that small, if they were all the same, you wouldn't like really traverse a long enough distance to really make it a roadmap. And I'll explain this better in a moment. And if it was, the distance between the nodes was big enough, say now we're 200 miles between each node. Now it's like, okay, you're traversing a large swath of the US as part of this roadmap, but you're not, I don't think you could narrow in on the treasure as much as I think would be needed. If the last one's all of a sudden this big 200-mile jump to the final location. And in order to make that jump, it seems like it'd be too easy to just find that last location in a vacuum anyway. So what I came up with that I've got listed here for logical outcome is that, I don't even know what I meant by that word, predetermined sequence, but basically a sequence of narrowing distances. Oh, yeah, I remember what I meant by that. Predetermined sequence of narrowing distances is what I decided was kind of logically what has to happen. So walking through that, what I meant by predetermined when I wrote this down is I think you need to know how far away from your current node you're looking for the next node. To me, I think that that's like, if I were putting together a treasure hunt, that's what I think I would do. And I think it creates a way of validating different responses, different answers, and also kind of cutting down some of like this whole too many things to check and too much stuff to look at. And then again, I think it needs to also be narrowing, because of all the reasons I just said, where I think that you basically need to be narrowing in on the treasure. You can't take linear huge jumps. You can't take tiny jumps, and I'll talk about that more in a second. So I wanted to find, I guess, to make sure that you guys are following me here, I'll just give a very simple example. So I would think that, say I would say 23, but let's say there's 20 hints that lead to specific points that you're supposed to follow like a roadmap, and each of those points is a node. My pitch is that it would have to go from like, okay, you find your first location, and through some means that your next location is 500 miles away. And then that the next one through some means is 300 miles away from that. And then it narrows down. In my mind, best case scenario, it narrows down to like, now you're at 19, 20, 21, 22, those final nodes. And now you're at like a mile, half a mile, quarter mile kind of thing. So what I wanted to start with is finding maybe some sort of mathematical expression that those nodes could be spaced at. Because I like I was saying, I don't think it can be linear. So without getting too into the weeds, I came up with something like that square root function or cube root function or logarithmic function, which is basically, you're going to be taking big leaps between nodes at the beginning, 500 miles, say, and then by the time you get down to like your last 5 nodes, you're down to like the last 5 are all within the last mile. And those are the clues you're finding. So this is a graphic I made that kind of illustrates my point, a couple of different points. So the one on the left is basically when I thought through it logically, that's kind of the roadmap I'd expect to see.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that there's, it covers a large swath of the US. I think that's an important part when it's kind of the lion's share of this big continental US treasure. And it makes big jumps at the beginning and then kind of narrows into a specific location. The graphic in the upper right hand corner is kind of what I was saying. I think I'd rule out if it's a roadmap, I'd rule out anything kind of just too small in general. And then the lower right hand corner, I also think that it wouldn't be jumbled like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
it wouldn't
the
cross
idea
over itself.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say, that's a hard and fast rule, but I don't think it would just go all over the place because I think that kind of is against the spirit of the roadmap to just go every which way.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a lot of notes and I feel like I'm not doing a great job explaining all of my thoughts, but the outcome is that I think that it needs to kind of, like I said, get smaller and smaller and narrow in on a specific area. But I do think that like the idea of knowing how far away the next node is the only way that like you can reasonably do this. So my next slide here is where I tried to kind of come up with ideas on how you would determine your distances between nodes. And obviously, I don't think you'd be expected to just pull this out of thin air. There'd probably be hints in the text somewhere. But I wanted to just kind of come up with a couple of different ideas. So my first one was, and you'll see that these are all 1 to 23, because this is when I was still thinking that there would be 23 nodes, one for each chapter, before I got turned off from that. But my first one that I tried was the Fibbinochi sequence, because that one's got like big treasure ties, right? Like that's the classic treasure hunting sequence. So you can see that goes 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, all the way up to 17,000. So this kind of illustrates what I'm looking for. This one didn't end up working because it gets too high too fast, at least for the idea of 23 nodes. But when I was looking at 23 nodes, the idea would be that there's something in the text that's supposed to tip you off to the idea of the Fibonacci sequence. And then you start at, this is what I mean by it's too big, because I think the US is only like, oh gosh, I don't even want to answer that now. I'm going to have egg on my face if I say that. But
3,000
a handful of thousands of miles wide. Single digit 1,000 miles wide. The worst part is I just looked at this like 2 days ago and I can't remember what the number is. But yeah, so the idea would be you're tipped off to the Fibonacci sequence and come up with this idea that, the difference between the nodes, and you'd go node 1, from node 1 to node 2 is 17,000 miles. And then node 2 to node 3 is 10,000. Node 3 to node 4 is 6,000. And then by the time you get to the last few nodes, you're 2 miles away, then 1 mile away, then 1 mile away. And then the last one's like right on it. So it's a way of kind of narrowing in and coming up with this predetermined distance between nodes. So I tried that. I've said this a few times now, but again, this is based off 23 nodes. I tried a half Fibonacci, which is basically instead of starting with 0 and 1, I started like 0 and 0.5. I tried all the prime numbers, which didn't get big enough fast enough. The Fibonacci ones both got too big too fast. I tried something, these last two, I looked into them briefly, and I can't even remember exactly what they are, but they're Fibonacci type sequences that are pretty famous. So there's the Pell sequence, which got way too big, way too fast, and the Padovan sequence, which I don't think got big enough, fast enough. Because I was looking for something that basically starts at maybe like, and actually that Padovan one might be good, but starts at a handful of hundreds of miles and goes down to somewhere around 1 mile.
Yeah. I mean, that one seems fairly reasonable.
That one does, yeah, now that I'm looking back at it.
US 3,000 miles wide, let's say. If you add those numbers together, you're on the order of 1,500, maybe a little less, 1,000 miles. So that's interesting.
So some other things I was looking at, again, in the mindset of originally I was kind of fixated on the Fibbinochi sequence and 23 nodes. So I thought, hey, that 17,000 miles is obviously too big. Maybe you start like, I was getting a lot of different European ties, a lot of France ties in the book. Maybe you like start there and then jump to the US. But the diameter of the Earth, which I did write down, is about 25,000 miles. And then I also thought, what if you like start at the moon because a lot of the moon stuff and then jump? But that was a little far fetched. Yeah, I think this might be that's my last slide. So, but yeah, that was my idea. Ultimately, I still think it holds water if that, if the idea of a roadmap, kind of similar to what I'm describing, generally is correct. I think that in my mind, all of these things would need to be true, or at least most of them, where you kind of need to have the predetermined distances and they need to be narrowing in. End of presentation.
Very interesting. I think I feel like I want to push back a little bit on the predetermined lengths of your nodes, between nodes. I feel like if you could identify the locations, and we just gave the dummy example last week about starting at Apple and then going to a research university nearby, right? Or even far away, and then going to an observatory if we're plotting these things out on a map, for example. I don't necessarily know if we have to have predetermined distance for those things and how easy or difficult that would be, because you can't just set that easily yourself, especially if you're using some sort of theorem, Fibonacci sequence or Hadovian sequences, for example. Then that's really constraining the types of clues that Jon Collins-Black can put in the book and associate those things with the treasures that he bought. And that seems like it gets out of hand very quickly in my mind. So I think I agree with everything you said, with kind of the way you plotted a map out on the US, that it would be nice if it crossed the US in a reasonable manner, in a grand manner, let's say, that a lot of places are hit. I'm less enthused about the numbers theory.
So I think my problem with the idea of it just being kind of this open world approach of just go wherever you want. I'm Jon Collins-Black. I'll give you the next hint. Go find the next thing. It could be anywhere in the US. Is what's keeping you from either purposely or accidentally stumbling on the end of the roadmap?
Yeah.
Versus the beginning. I mean, I think at a minimum, the previous stops on the roadmap need to influence the next stop in some way. And maybe that's ultimately my feeling, and I'm kind of overcomplicating it. And that really needs to be my big takeaway statement, is that the previous stops in the roadmap need to influence the next stop in some way, whether it's thematic, whether it's hints from these previous ones build up in some way to the next one, or whether, kind of like I explored in this presentation, it's like specific distances. We're literally like locked in because of your last node to radius where the next one's going to be. I just think there has to be some structure, and there has to be some reason for needing to go to all the other places on the map, or pay off from going to all the other places in the map, or else it just seems too easy to jump in halfway or jump in at the very end, in my mind.
Yeah. While you were talking about numbers, I'm also thinking, is there a way just to use the numbers in the book somewhere? Like, you find a location associated with a chapter hint, then look for numbers that are mentioned that might be out of place near that or somewhere in the chapter and use those as well. So yeah, I see where you're coming from, definitely, but I do feel like there's enough potential other hints in these chapters that you might be able to do it without numbers at all. That's just my gut reaction. I haven't thought about it beyond that. Something else I've been thinking about is, we talked about the eclipse paths and things like that. Where would that play into this? I'm thinking, is there a way that you can make the locations in the book, key locations in the book, maybe make 2 lines for an X, right? I mean, we do have the X on the cover of the book. It seems like it's a reasonable way to get to that. It's also mentioned you don't need to find all of the clues in the book. So that would kind of argue towards it is possible to have a truncated path, possibly if we are to make this roadmap. If it were so, mathematically locked in and you missed a clue, would that ruin your solve? Because Jon Collins-Black says it's not required to find all of the clues that he's hidden. So
I would think, just as a thought experiment, I guess, my thought would be that you have to find every node. You don't have to find every clue to point. There'd be multiple clues pointing to every node, and you wouldn't have to find all of the clues to find the node, but you'd have to still find the node. And I think independent of what we're talking about, of if distance is important or not, or predetermined or not, I still think that's the case. I think if there's a roadmap, you got to make every stop on the roadmap, would be my gut feeling, but that there'd just be multiple clues for each stop, and you wouldn't need to necessarily find all the clues for each stop.
Okay.
I just think if you're going through the trouble of making a roadmap, it just seems weird that there'd just be like ways of fully bypassing sections of it.
I do like the concept, like what Blake was saying, like the intersection, kind of an X marks the spot of, whether this be the multiple locations, and then there's a single point of intersection, but like Blake was saying, there is the big X on the cover. And I continue to be hung up on the part 2 chapters being in Roman numerals, which is also X's. So it's like, there does seem to be like this big emphasis on the classic X marks the spot and this point of intersection. So obviously I don't have too much to like bolster that, but it just came to mind when Blake was talking about the intersecting points.
Yeah. Hearing all the feedback from you guys, I'd like to formally change my claim to, I'm reiterating what I said a minute ago, but formal takeaway is that I believe that you need some information from previous stops on the roadmap to get to the next stop.
Okay. All right.
I don't think it's just a fully open world, point you to this one, then in a vacuum, point you to the next one.
Right.
I like that.
We will see. I'll see if I come up with a counter PowerPoint presentation in the near future.
I would welcome that.
All right. Cool. Excellent. Very, very good thought exercise as usual. So thanks, Cody. We mix it up with a little bit of mailbag.
Mailbag. We've got mail.
All right, just a couple quickies for the mailbag since we have a more in-depth Discord detectives, I feel. Mailbag. So we did get a response back from Lisa. So she was the one, let me pull up that table. She was the one that had put together that table, or at least showed us that table about the Hopi culture. So this is going back to butterflies, Hopi culture, chinas.
Yeah, we were questioning if that one
we were wondering who made that table because it seemed almost too good, right? All right, so let me pull that table up to refresh everyone's memory. Let's see, here it is. So the table that she had displayed showed some Hopi symbols. It was a butterfly, corn, kachina, rain cloud. The meanings of those symbols, so butterfly meaning transformation and joy, which are two themes that we've kind of been drilling into quite a bit the last month or two. And then the cultural significance. So the first thing on this list was the butterfly, meaning transformation and joy, and representing personal and communal growth. Then there's the corn, sustenance and life is the meaning of that, and central to agricultural and spiritual practices. The kachina, the spiritual guidance and connection. Cultural significance is intermediaries between the spiritual and physical realms. And then a rain cloud, hope and fertility, symbolizes the importance of water and sustenance. So we were really locked in on the butterfly one. Curious if Lisa was the one that made this table, and no, she is not. So she has provided us with, I think, 2 or 3 links that I'll post in the show notes here that link back to the references and where this table originally came from. Let me go to the first one. So this table itself actually came from usahistorytimeline.com, which is, I'll warn you to put your ad blocker on because it seemed a little bit spammy when I went to it the first time. But basically, I will read Lisa's response here. So she said, "My bad, I should have included the source for the summary of common Hopi symbols chart I sent earlier." And if you scroll about halfway down this particular page on Hopi symbols and their meaning and use in daily life, sure enough, that table is right there. So Lisa, it's not your bad. I don't think we've ever been asking for sources before so heavily. So you kind of caught the short end of the stick there. So sorry about that. But we appreciate you coming back with the source here. The important thing is that she says, but it's not the only source of this information. It was just nicely packaged here. I cross-checked it with other sources first, and then she has a couple other links that I will also post in the show notes. Symbols of the Hopi Indian tribe, a guide to meaning and understanding, and then butterfly spiritual meaning, Native American website as well. So there's 2 other sources that she's kind of compiled along with this that packaged it nicely. Again, these are all internet resources as I understand them. So again, take it with a grain of salt. But yes, this is not something that Lisa kind of, let's say, confirmation biasly put together, right? These are just straight from sources that are unassociated with the treasure hunt. So super cool. Appreciate that, Lisa. Thank you for following up with that. Any comments or questions about that?
I mean, I think it's huge. The fact that we can find that in a few different sources. I just think, like, obviously we were skeptical of it because it was so perfect.
Right.
But like, if it is so perfect, maybe it just is so perfect. So I think that's a really big find.
Yeah. So, I've started to undergo some Kachina research myself, as promised from last episode. I am running into the same thing. I think one of you warned me against, or I don't know who, that there's just not a lot of information online about these things. So it's kind of difficult to research, and I feel like I have to go to like a real library.
And even beyond that, I did quite a bit of Hopi research, and I kind of felt like I got the impression that it's a lot of oral tradition stuff, and then you get kind of slightly different versions that, like, in everyday life, they're basically saying the same thing, but when you're like trying to do a treasure hunt, it's like, okay, the exact phrasing of this now is actually really important, and I'm kind of seeing slightly different phrasings of the same idea in different places, and I think that just originates from like I said, like oral traditions having little skews one way or the other, depending on who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran into that problem too.
Yeah, so more to come on that, but thank you for following up, Lisa. It bolsters the connection certainly here between the Hopi chapter the odd section that he added into that chapter to talk about more Hopi life and culture. So I need to do some close reading of that again, and then try to find some more sources here. So anyway, super interesting. So thanks for following up, Lisa.
Yeah, it's nice to have those connections between three of probably our strongest themes at this point, and joy, Hopi stuff, and butterfly. Seems like that's, I feel really good about that.
Yep. Yeah.
Transformation.
Transformation. Beyond the Kachina, I'm also trying to compile some information about the Hopi dances and seasons as well, since that's highlighted on the calendar. I think I don't know. Right now I'd put my money as a major clue somewhere in the Kachina, Katsina, interchangeable words, theme, just because it's so prominent on the Hopi calendar that Jon Collins-Black included in the book. So hopefully more to come on that. Some way to connect those seasons, those kachinas, those dances with those underlined letters that spell out antler potentially. There's got to be something that we can put together there. So hopefully I have a nice horseshoes and hand grenades or dead ringer soon. We'll see. I don't know.
Let's hope it's not a horseshoes and hand grenades.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a horseshoes and hand grenades. All right. Next email message is from Anonymous. They did not send it anonymously, but I did not get permission yet to read this, so I'm going to leave it as anonymous. It doesn't give away information, so that's why I feel confident reading it. You will see in a minute. For starters, I wanted to say I love your podcast and I watch it at work during my downtime. That's why I wanted to read the email, for a compliment.
The anonymous people always say the greatest things about us. I read an email earlier from Anonymous who says I'm very handsome.
Oh, yeah? The Anonymous also says Blake is my favorite. All right. Just joking. Okay. I am 100% positive I have solved the Appalachian footpath box, so that's why I wanted to keep it anonymous here. I went boots on the ground this past week and came up empty, but after being to the spot, I'm more confident than ever that I've solved it. My issue is that I have no idea how far off the path the box could be. I saw someone somewhere say the max distance from the trail is 20 feet, but I can't find that anywhere else. Do you know how far off the trail the box could be? So that's the main reason I wanted to read this email, is just get your guys' gut reactions on, we know that it's less than 3 miles, 3 miles or less away from a road, publicly accessible road. But beyond that, how far off trail are you guys willing to go to try to find this treasure? Do you have any hints on that?
Well, go ahead, Cody.
I was just going to say, I'm still working on the assumption I would go 3 miles off trail if it felt reasonable when boots on the ground.
All right, so that's extreme opinion number one, that anything is fair game as long as it's 3 miles from a road. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly off a trail.
And I was actually, to even follow up on that a little bit more, I took I was surprised was an unpopular opinion when we talked about this a month or two ago, that if you had a road and a trail that runs for longer than 3 miles, but still as the crow flies is within 3 miles of the roadway, I think that's valid. And that seemed like an unpopular opinion.
Yeah,
but
I would
in my mind, as the crow flies, however you have to get there, if you're within 3 miles of a road and it's safe, that's valid in my mind.
Okay. Super extreme opinion. All right.
I'd say I didn't think it was. That's what's so surprising.
So I guess I would say the only thing that I'm going to take as a fact is 3 miles from the road. I know in the Treasure Hunt with Us podcast, they asked him, how far off a trail could this be? And he said it best. He said something along the lines of well, who says it's along a trail? And I think people need to keep that top of mind as well, because there's no indication that this is even off a trail. It could be very well somewhere that you just aren't even going on a trail to get there. having to go off a trail to get there. Is it most likely? Probably. I mean, I think that's probably
Most
getting on a
likely
trail.
off of a trail, you mean?
Yeah, most likely off of a trail, just because he doesn't want people to stumble upon these, and so there has to be some distance removed from where you'd stumble upon it, and the easiest way to kind of get there would likely be off a trail.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm certainly not under the assumption that all of these are even off a trail. Um, Obviously, he wants it to be safe, so I don't know. I don't want to go in circles here.
Mm-hmm.
Likely is off a trail. If it were me, I don't think I would put any distance on how far I'd be willing to go off the trail. I would just gauge it more on like the safety of the situation. Like if it felt safe to walk,
Through
five
an
miles.
open plains or something like this, a forest that's
Yeah.
not like just overgrown, right? If
Yeah.
you can walk even though it's not a marked trail, that would be fair game.
Yeah. So say you were on a trail and you could walk 5 miles in a direction. You could still safely, find your way back. Like the safety is not a concern, but that 5 miles away off the trail is still within 3 miles of a road. I would say that's a fair game.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I agree with you, Bryn. I agree with all your points that I think it's probably likely off a trail for most, if not all, of the boxes. But also I would not limit a certain amount of distance. I think this topic has been coming up in the Justin Posey treasure hunt, which we did not cover here, but I did see Calazar's last episode or 2 episodes ago was how far is 200 feet off a trail? And there was a whole episode about that, I believe. So, Bryn, you already covered my first recommendation. First recommendation is watch that treasure hunt with us interview with Jon Collins-Black, where they ask directly how far off a trail is far or not far. He doesn't, Jon Collins-Black doesn't answer that, like you said, specifically. But I would go back and review that footage and just see if you can garner any gut reaction to that. The second one would be check out the Justin Posey discussion, because my understanding is that maybe Justin said something about it's at max 200 feet off a trail, or it is 200 feet off a trail, something like that. But that might spurn some thoughts or conversation about what would be appropriate for a Jon Collins-Black hunt to whatever is being discussed for that one. So those are kind of the 2 recommendations I thought I would recommend for this.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess just in general, I'd say like use safety as your best gauge of what you're doing, because this is supposed to be intended for like a family, all ages, all accessibility. Like, I would not wander off anywhere that does not feel like safe and accessible to do so.
Absolutely.
Would be my biggest parameter, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very clear in the book that you're not supposed to be in any sort of danger geographically while trying to find these treasures. No cliffs, no scaling, no bouldering, no crossing of bodies of water. All of those are explicitly mentioned by Jon Collins-Black in the book. All right.
I would just, I guess I kind of already said this, but just to reemphasize too, I think just with how concerned he is about safety, I don't think he's going to put someone in a situation where you would like end up getting lost either. Obviously, you do need some direction and clues to get to the right location, but I don't think that's going to be so abstract or off remote location in a weird way that your safety would be compromised with being able to backtrack how you got there either. It's just my personal opinion.
Great point. Yeah, he does not mention orienteering or bringing a compass with you in the safety section, so that would argue towards trail adjacent, but we just don't have any hard facts about that. All right, Discord detectives. All right, mini Discord detectives today. As mentioned, I have a little bit of Pokemon talk for you, Bryn. But I feel
Bring
like
it.
the Pokemon talk devolved very quickly into a general discussion of the coins. So I think that's where we're going to start. So let me pull up a picture of the coins really quick, if I can. Don't know which direction to go. Here we go. All right. So from Twisted Indie in the Calazar's Discord, it's possible the coins were added where the added hint he intended to leave for only those that found the smaller boxes, but then reverted to sharing the coins and leaving something else as a clue to the lion's share box in the smaller boxes. What do you think about that? I thought that was a very cool opinion or thought. That maybe... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess maybe my take on that is I could easily see the coins being the clue that you get to the lion's share. But I think the additional context is he's going to tell you what the coin, like, this is what this coin means. This is how you use it.
I see
Is how I would
Pucks.
interpret it.
I see Pucks in the Discord responded. Yeah, I think the additional clue in each box is how to use the coin found in the particular box. So you guys are exactly on the same wavelength.
We see each other.
Anyway, I thought this was a super cool idea. That, originally Jon Collins-Black designed the coins and the pattern on the coins as the individual clue for the finder. Changed his mind because he wanted to show everybody Seth Gold's artistry with the coins as well as the boxes. Decided to put them in, and then, exactly as you said, Bryn, maybe the individual clue is how to use the pattern on the coin.
So I think I stand by what I say, but I also I think he maybe could have thought originally he wouldn't be putting the images of them in the book,
Mm-hmm.
and you would just find it with the context.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe he that seems too difficult. Like maybe he thought, well, even if you had the coin with the context, you would still need the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because the odds of 4 people finding these part 2 boxes and then all sharing the information to make them all work together in a certain way,
Right.
like maybe just how he built it out, like being able to keep it confidential or needed to have visibility to all 4.
Yeah.
Being pertinent, I think, is a very fair reason why, if someone was saying maybe they weren't supposed to be in the book originally, now that they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, counterpoint to that theory is if they are meant to be lion's share clues, doesn't seem like anybody has, in my opinion, has a slam dunk theory on these yet. And having all 4 pieces of this information together hasn't yielded something that I've been convinced by yet. So,
I mean, I think you're going to need a pretty solid solve to either use these as confirmation or find kind of like your final steps. Like if you've solved your roadmap approach in the correct way, then maybe these are doing something with the nodes to help you confirm you're in the right area or take that final step, something like that. I mean, the fact that we have these lines and intersections feels very appropriate with the roadmap idea. Maybe we're supposed to be identifying 4 locations and then we use these as angles to work off of those locations. So I guess to me, I feel like these aren't supposed to be solved first, or they're not supposed to lead you to a solve. But I think, well, not lead you to a solve is incorrect, but I think you need to basically have figured it out, and then these will make sense at that point in time and get you to a final location in a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Cody, do you have opinion on this theorem?
I think I'm torn because I think part of it makes a lot of sense. I can totally see that like sequence of events happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm going to give each one of these away as the bonus clue to whoever finds it. But oh, never mind. Now I want to show them all in the book. So I'm just going to put them all in the book. That I can see that happening. That makes sense. But at the same time, my take, independently of this whole conversation, was that I don't think the 4 coins like combine together to make something. I think they all have to be independent things. And I guess those two things could both be true at the same time. But I was not a big believer in the idea that that it all combines together, I guess.
Okay.
So you think each one is a clue in a specific way to each part 2 box, and they don't provide guidance to the lion's share?
I'm trying to remember what we were talking about and what my take was because I felt pretty strongly about it. But ultimately, I felt that maybe it wasn't so much them combining together, but all 4 coins serving the same purpose or doing the same thing. I think I was not on board with that because it felt like once you solve 1 coin, you're getting too much information for one solve for then you to be able to basically be like, okay, then I've solved all 4 coins.
Yeah, you were saying like if past and future box coin happened to be a state intersection, not all of these are state intersections.
Yeah. So I'm kind of trying to reconcile both of those two things and see if both of them can be true.
All right. I will continue the conversation. You're welcome to continue thinking, Cody. DS1980 says, I think the Pokemon coin plays a few roles. One role is the shape on the coin provides a relationship to the length or distance markings related to your solve. A short line is how many long lines? Is the short line the same diameter as the circle? All of those ratios could allow you to determine distances. The coin may also provide direction if you have it anchored properly.
The ratios idea is really interesting. I had not thought about that.
That's what caught my eye. Yeah.
Did someone give an answer on that?
I don't think so. The one note beyond that was from J $, J Money. It is also notable that not every coin uses the entire available area for the lines. The lines on the past and future coin stop short of filling the available possible space. I thought that was also a super interesting observation, and that's why I wanted to put the visual up here. What your guys' opinions were on that.
Is a really good point. Yeah, like the scale of it is important.
Mm-hmm. So certainly for the Appalachian Flip Path box and the Pokemon box, those are like end to end using the full width of the coin face, where past and future box did not take advantage of that. So that's why I combined these Discord detectives together, because I thought the ratios, as you picked up on, Brendan, was very interesting, that the line length might matter significantly here because of the way that these coins are laid out and not using the full space.
That almost makes me think more that these coins work together.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's I like those are really good points.
Agreed.
Huh.
So I'm not expecting a resolution of this today because I think that's a lot to think on. But just something to keep as a tickler in the back of your mind if there's something clever you can do based on those couple of observations.
Yeah. Very interesting. I think the like all along comparing the Pokemon box to the Appalachian Footpath box has always been very, I mean, they're very similar, obviously different, but like I would love to know how those two short lines compare in distance.
Hmm.
Like, are we supposed to be considering if those are the same distance, like the fact that one enters a circle and exits? Yeah, I don't know. I don't have clear thoughts on this yet. It's just, I really like both of those ideas. There's a lot to consider with that.
And then, yeah, we will re-point out, this was not from the Discord detectives, but re-point out that the Pokemon box is kind of unique here in that the circle on the coin, the little circle on the coin, is not at an intersection where the other three are. So what do we make of that? So lots of food for thought. I thought those were very interesting comments happening in the Discord recently.
Yeah. This is a whole new thing to think about. Oh no.
I'm not saying it's worth investigating heavily right now, but just something to file away in your brain.
Yeah, I think regardless, it's not I don't want to say it's not useful to try to figure it out at this point. I don't think we can.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, I don't think we can figure it out yet. But it is really interesting to think about.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be really interesting to see JCB's approach when someone finds a box, because they say he's going to release the explanation, right?
That's our understanding, is that
So it'll be
we should get
really
solves.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how he approaches that. If he does, I would guess that he would do like one video that he creates and releases and then takes no comments on. I mean, I think that's how we'd have
that'd
to
be
do
wise,
it.
yeah.
But then there'd be so much to just read into like what he left out. Like, say he doesn't address the coin at all. Does that mean, okay, now he didn't address the coin because it does play into the other boxes too? Or I know I'm getting way into the weeds here, but it's just something I'm thinking about
I
as
think
as we're talking about this.
I think it's a really important thing to bring up though, because all of our assumption of him saying he's going to release these solves, I believe, was based, I can't remember what interview it was, but I think he was asked, like, are you going to tell people, are you going to release the solve? And it was kind of just, he didn't really think of it. Was like, oh, huh, like, I guess so. Am I not remembering this correctly? Like, I think that's kind of the only confirmation we have that he was planning on telling us what a solve is. And so I guess my second part of that is, um, I think we're also then assuming he's going to be telling us solves as they're found. But I feel like it's most likely that no solve is going to be revealed by Jon Collins-Black if he does reveal a solve until all solves are complete. Until the book is complete, I see that being when he reveals a solve.
Really?
Well, think about how he could get himself in a world of craziness releasing a solve before all the other boxes are found. I feel like that just opens up such a big can of worms in a way that him wanting to stay kind of disassociated from the hunt. That he's put the book out. He wants the book to just be what the book is. Like, doesn't it feel like it'd be insane if he then comes in and like, the first box has been found. This is how it was solved. Because, like I said, I think all of the part 2 solves are kind of part of the lion's share solve. So I can't imagine he's going to be providing all that additional context for the lion's share.
Yeah, I think I'd recommend you listen to the American Treasure podcast, episode 5, I believe, because he talks a little bit about this scenario, and he talks about the leaving a special note or a special clue within the individual boxes. He had the theory, and again, this is probably in the 2022 timeframe, he had the theory or the idea that he might allow the finder of a small box, a part 2 box, to have their own clue, and then also at the same time release a clue to the community as well once a box is found, so that everybody benefits. We don't know if that's going to come to pass or not, but I think he has put a lot of thought into this.
Okay.
I would be surprised if he doesn't I see it as an option, certainly, that he doesn't comment on solves until all of them are found. That's going to be super frustrating for everybody. I would lean towards him commenting on solves at the time that they're found. Maybe that's more of a hope, but that's my gut feeling.
I'm sure I of course want that. I'll have to go back and listen to that episode again because I must not be remembering everything correctly. It felt pretty informal to me just from what I was remembering.
It is, but anyway, let's regroup on that and re-listen before we get too bent out of shape. I don't think it's insane. I don't think it's quote unquote insane that he would comment on a solve prior to finding all the boxes.
Yes. Yes. It just feels like a very slippery slope.
That's what I was saying. I think you'd have to release one video, say this is it.
Yeah.
I'll talk about more later. This is what you get.
Yeah, because what's he gonna do? Put on his website a box, the Appalachian Trail box was found. That's it? Oh, that would be tough. All right. Next comment. So I believe that Discord user Megan was, I don't know if she was going boots on the ground or what. She found a golf course that had a logo similar to the Froki stomach pattern. Here. This is Jeremy's. It's hard to read that. Jeremy's Creek Golf Course in Missouri, I believe. So a little bit farther north than I think we're interested in. Certainly, it's beyond the Ozark area of the United States. So going back to the debate of how far is a little ways off of our original road trip path, right? But I thought this was fun just because you had found that same similar pattern in that boardwalk at Memorial Park in Houston as well. So I thought that was a fun fact.
The little raindrop, nice.
Yep.
Plus, what does the Pokemon coin look like?
Right. So that's always been in the back of our mind. I can go back to it. One theory is that the Pokemon coin, because the circle is at the end, that could look like a little golf flag.
It's all coming together.
Yeah, solved. All right.
If that ends up being a golf flag and it's revealed that that's a golf flag, I'm going to have to reassess my approach to this treasure hunt in so many ways.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Memorial Park solve at some point and have a second look at that. I think it's pretty interesting still, honestly.
Yeah?
I know we debunked it somewhat, but I don't know. Second look with fresh eyes. It's kind of interesting still.
I just can't get over this logo. Like a take on Augustine on the Masters, but what is
with more crossing words?
I don't know. I'm so confused.
All right. So yeah, here's Jeremy's Creek up in Missouri. We have Arkansas south of that, Oklahoma to the west. So it kind of puts you in perspective. This is a little sneak peek of where all the places I've been looking in Arkansas. So you guys can screenshot that and
circles of gold.
Spy on my reconnaissance areas.
Yeah.
All right. What else is on here? I think that's maybe the end of my pictures. Still have a couple more Discord detectives that are kind of cool. J Biggs has two things here that I think you will be interested in, Bryn. J Biggs has first a quick solve here. Hoping this can help somebody. I've been looking into Elephant Rocks State Park in Missouri. A lot of clues led me there. The big thing was the rocks themselves, called Elephant Rocks because of how big they are. They are red granite, parentheses, ruby red eyes, And elephants are known to be wise. Wise golem. Also formed 1.5 billion years ago. I don't know what the association is there. He mentions pack several times, as in pachyderm. So I thought you'd like that. So elephants are considered pachyderms. And he does mention pack a lot in the chapter, but we had not made that association before of, we've been thinking about packs of animals, groups of animals, things like that. But as elephants being pachyderms themselves, maybe that's of interest. So I thought that was a fun find. There's also an old engine house that was a railroad to carry granite to other states, which could be the Coltrane reference. Also, people quote unquote rock hop on the top of these rocks, kind of like how a frog hops. It's close to the St. Francis State Park. And the big thing is that the one corner of the park, there's a spot that looks to be the angle on the coin. I can't go out for several reasons, but hopes this helps someone. So anyway, throw it a quick Pokemon box solve, just because it's fun to see those thought processes. Any additional thoughts on that?
I mean, I just always appreciate other people's opinion or other people's perspectives on how they're interpreting certain things, because it's so easy. I get stuck in my ways of the ways that I've interpreted all the different nuances and wordplay scenarios in the book. And so it's just nice to hear, like, how else is someone thinking through all these packing references? Just that alone kind of gets me out of my bubble of, well, surely it has to be this. So it's just nice to be challenged to reconsider some things.
J Biggs with a second comment. Whoever is on the music theme for this box, the Pokemon box, I just found there is a special chord called the Mew chord, M-U. Mew is sometimes pronounced Mew. Made popular by the band Steely Dan. Gotta be a connection. And then as follow-up, Johnny Law 75, definitely an all-star in the Calzar's Discord. He said, yeah, you add a second to a chord. So literal Mewtwo. And Coltrane used them too. Hope it helps someone. That got me nowhere. Anyway.
It does bring up an excellent point, though, that I guess we don't know anything, but I think it's fair to say that finding Mew in some way is important to the solve. So I really enjoy hearing that music connection. The Mewtwo is very clever as well.
Yeah, so maybe some Mewtwo or Mew chord research in the music area might warrant something. Although a little disheartened if Johnny Law didn't find anything associated with it. It's going to be tough to find something associated with it. He does his research, so... anyway, just a nice tickler, I thought, for the Pokemon box to get you thinking in other directions here.
I like it. Thank you.
Yep. All right. I think that's enough Discord detectives for the day. Should we get into coincidence of the day? Cody, you have coincidence of the day.
Yeah, I ran into this little coincidence. I was working on my PowerPoint presentation, and when I was doing some research into the Fibbinochi sequence, which is kind of like one of the classic, as I mentioned, one of the classic treasure hunting, I guess, like tropes or sequences. Anyway, second paragraph on the Fibbinochi sequence Wikipedia page, so pretty prominent on a very long Wikipedia page. The Fibonacci numbers were first described in Indian mathematics as early as 200 BC in work by Pingala on enumerating possible patterns of Sanskrit poetry formed from syllables of two lengths. So I did some digging into it, and it's a lot of difficult words. But basically, there's a strong connection between the Fibonacci sequence and Sanskrit. And as I'm sure at least the three of us know, Sanskrit is the language of JCB's singular tattoo he has. Today, I have one tattoo. It runs down my left forearm. It is written in Sanskrit.
Ooh.
So just a little coincidence of the day connection. It's always funny to run across something tied to Sanskrit when I'm looking at different treasure hunt related things.
Nice find.
Coincidence of the day.
Nice. Nice. All right. Cool. I think that's an episode. Any parting thoughts, or should we wrap this up?
Let's wrap it up and get back to the hunt.
Back to the hunt. All right. Have a good
See you
night,
at
everybody.
TreasureCon.
See you at TreasureCon. That's Calazar's TreasureCon. I will also put a link to that in the show notes here today, so you guys can get registered if you want to come to TreasureCon. At Las
When is
Vegas.
that?
January 31st, around that date. Yeah, 2026. So should be a good time had by all. All right. Good night, everybody.
Searching for clues, let's find you.